What's up, everybody? Thanks for tuning in. So in today's video, I went ahead and sat down with one of my good friends, Victor. In this video, we do highlight kind of his backstory, and he does give a lot of details about, his journey, and his journey is definitely one that we can all learn from. Someone who battled drug addiction, has been locked up multiple times, had, trials with relationships, having a, feeling kind of like he wasn't there maybe for his family, things like that. It's good, I think, for people to see that, it doesn't have to be like a similar path, with Victor and with a lot of people I know, myself included. There's going to be mistakes you make, things you do along the way that you're not proud of, but the key is to find that reason to kind of push forward, and that's what these videos are going to be about. It's going to be about, hey, wherever you are in your journey, maybe it's day 1, maybe it's day 10, maybe it's year 10, but being there for yourself, consistently showing up every day, bringing that growth mindset, is huge. This is going to be a weekly thing. I'm hoping to score an interview with somebody every Sunday. If not, I'm still going to post once a week, just to kind of put out some inspiration, talk about mental health. Maybe, it could be even a story in the news. It could just be something that I think is important for people to understand when it comes to mental health. Maybe it's a behavioral health clinic that's made some strides on the community. Maybe we can get some community people on here pretty soon and we can start talking about mental health. But I think there's a lot of things that will end up on here, a lot of different stories. I'm hoping to do people that maybe struggle with obesity, maybe anorexia, maybe they're bulimic, self-image issues, people that struggle with, addiction, people that maybe were suicidal, and then just go from there. The big picture here is just to show that it doesn't matter where you are, it doesn't matter what you've been through, you can always choose a better tomorrow, and it really just starts with, the mindset. What am I going to do today to be better than I was yesterday, and just get 1% better every day. So with that being said, I hope you guys enjoy the video. I hope you guys tune in each week. I will be selling some clothing. These clothes will be representative of the Lifeitition brand. Just taking ownership of who you are, being a physician, a dietitian, but being that for yourself, giving yourself that same care that we all should. So I hope you guys enjoy the video, and if you could, like this video and please subscribe. Thanks. All right, well, I'm here today with my good friend Victor. We're going to talk a little bit about recovery, talk about his journey, and also some things that people should be doing, looking to do, that struggle with addiction, and good life lessons. So if you just want to give us a little backstory, why you decided to get clean, kind of your journey.
All right, so yeah, my name is Victor. I'm in long-term recovery. A little bit about my background. I grew up in California. I grew up in a middle-class family. Pretty much had everything I needed when I was growing up, except for my parents there all the time. On the weekends we used to go four-wheeling. We used to go out, and my parents would be drinking all the time, or my mom would, I don't know if I should talk about my mom like that, but my mom already knows. So, my mom used to smoke a little bit of this and that, so on the weekends I would be with my parents, and I would always they'd have me hold their drink, and when they have me hold their drink, I would sip it, just to see what it tasted like, and as I got a little bit, this was probably in kindergarten, I was probably 5 years old, and I could still remember back to them days, and it started off with sips, and then it would be the full can, and then I'd open up another one for them so they didn't know I drank it, and then yeah, man, that's just how it started, by the time I was 9, I was sneaking into my mom's purse and stealing her roaches, you know, because I always seen my mom smoking, and I just wanted to see what it was like, you know.
Right.
So I'd take a puff or two, and then I'd run back in the house and put it back in her coin purse, you know. And that just led to, like, you know, curiosity, and it was just like nothing other than, oh, I want to try this to see what it's like, and that just kept going on with drugs harder and harder as I got a little bit older. You know, by the time I was 15, I had already had a DUI. Got another one when I was 16. You know, got involved with gangs. You know, and being involved with gangs and hanging out with the people that I hung out with, you know, there was just like a little more temptation around every other corner. You know, every time, you know, if they were smoking PCP, I wanted to know what it was. I was curious, so I'd smoke some PCP. You know, the first time I smoked we call them Peter Pans, you know. It was weed dipped, you know, marijuana dipped in PCP.
Oh.
That kind of messed me up, you know, but I liked the feeling. The first time I ever smoked one of those with crack in it, I got pissed off because I didn't want to be a crackhead. You know what I'm saying? Like, I had this image in my head like crackheads were bad people, and all my homies that I've seen on it were all doing bad.
Yeah.
You know, but then by the time I was 17 and we moved to Vegas, I started working construction, and my boss was like, "Hey, you ever done meth?" And I was like, "What the hell's that?" And he's like, "Bro, it's like high-powered cocaine." And I'm like, "Well, let's do some." And I did some, and I didn't feel nothing. It was like, it burned my nose, it hurt, and I didn't do it again until one night I went out and I pulled off some crimes, and stole a bunch of stuff, and then went and sold it and made a bunch of money, and I went and bought a bunch of coke. And by the time I got home, my boss lived right next door to me, and I went up to my boss's door. I was like, "Hey, you want to do some coke?" And he said, "Yeah, sure, let's do some coke." And you know, we did some coke, and he's like, "Let's mix it with some meth." And instantly, like, it was just like a totally different high than what I was used to when I did coke.
Right.
And I was like, "Man, let's go gamble." Like, we went to the 7-Eleven on the corner by our house, and we were playing video poker, and that just led into like a whole different lifestyle. Right. You know, I always knew how to hustle. I always knew how to make money off of drugs. You know, I sold crack when I was young. I sold coke when I was young. I sold PCP. You know, and once I started doing meth, it was just like, I was in love. Right. Honestly. So 1995, I had a kid. You know, my daughter was born, and all I knew how to do was hustle. I didn't know how to work. I didn't know how to hold down a job. You know, I wanted fast money, and I wanted it like all the time. You know, and it also like supplied by habit. You know, I would buy enough dope to sell enough to make the money back to buy more, and then do the rest just to stay that, you know, feeling that rush.
Right.
So 1995, my daughter was born. I was selling drugs. Somebody called the cops, let CPS know what I was doing. My house was raided. My daughter was taken from me, and that was like the downward spiral. It was the start of my own self-destruction. You know, I was 20 years old. I was 21 years old, and I was just like, man, if I'm never gonna see my daughter again, what's the point in living? You know. So I went on this straight suicide mission. I was like, I'm just gonna do dope until I'm dead. You know. So I did dope for 28 days straight. I went from 185 pounds to about 117. And on the 28th day, I went to the emergency room, and after I told my family, like, I can't do this anymore. You know, and I literally looked like a skeleton with skin, like brown skin, because it was summertime in Vegas, and it was just, I was just burnt. Like, I was not only was I sunburnt and sun damaged, I was burnt out on drugs. You know. So I went to the hospital. You know, my mom worked at the hospital. I went into the emergency room. Everybody that was there to get me. I thought everybody was the feds, the DEA, cops, undercovers. You know, I thought they were all trying to get me. They were trying to kill me. So like sitting in the emergency room for 12 hours. My sister was there. She was crying. My mom finally got off of work because she worked at the hospital. And my mom came downstairs and says, "Why are you still in the waiting room?" I'm like, "I don't know. They've been making me wait." So my mom went back, you know, in the back, and was like, "Hey, this is my son out here." So they put me in a room, you know, and I remember them putting an IV in my arm because I was dehydrated, and they handed me this big bottle, and they're like, we need a UA sample from you so we can find out what kind of drugs you're on.
Yeah.
And as soon as they walked out of the room, I pulled the IV out of my arm and I walked out to the lobby and I told my mom, I'm like, I'm not staying here. They're trying to bust me, Mom. They're trying to fucking set me up.
Right.
And so me and my mom left, and she took me to go get some food, took me to her house, and just kept trying to tell me like, Mijo, go to sleep.
Right.
And the whole time I'm thinking in my head like my mom's trying to kill me.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
very delusional, you know, and she's crying, and she's like, please just go to sleep. I'm not gonna hurt you. I'm here to protect you. You know, you're my son. I love you. And I still remember all this clearly. Like, even though this was 20 something years ago, you know, it's still like, it's something I'll never forget. You know, so my mom did everything she could, you know, and then she finally, you know, took me down to this detox place in Vegas. I went to the detox. They let me in, and they're like, okay, you're gonna stay here for 7 days. And all I did was sleep and eat, sleep and eat, sleep and eat, sleep and eat. I gained like 35 pounds in 7 days.
Yeah.
Because every time they called seconds or thirds, if I was right there, like with my plate, just like I'm like, fill it up, you know. And one of the things that they tell you there is like, if you want to go to treatment after this, you have to walk down to this treatment center, you know, and just be careful when you walk down there because, you know, there's crack houses and there's heroin dens, and it was on the west side of Vegas, and sure enough, man, you walk down the street and dudes are offering you everything, especially when they see you going to treatment center.
Ooh.
So, you know, I went there every day, and when I got out of detox, they're like, look, if you really want a bed, you'll come sit in our lobby every day until there's an opening.
Right.
And I did that. You know, I sat there for days, and then one day they're like, Victor, call your mom, get your bags, and go get your stuff. We got a bed for you.
Right.
I'm like, hell yeah. So I called my mom, and mom comes and gets me. We go get my bags, we come back, and I check into treatment, and that was like my really first taste at recovery. I had been in treatment before when I was a juvenile, you know, but I always went because I knew I needed help, but I just wanted to go to get away, you know, from the gang violence and just all the drama on the streets.
Yeah.
You know, and every time I went to treatment, it was just it was always just about like, okay, I want to get away.
Right.
You know, so when I was in this treatment center in Vegas, you know, I met a lot of really cool people from a lot of different 12-step programs. You know, I met this dude there named Billy, and I was just watching what he was doing. He was like probably like 20-something years old. He had like 2 years clean, and he just like inspired me. So every day that I wasn't in classes or I wasn't at work, I was hanging out in the office with him, and he's just like feeding me recovery. You know, he would take me to meetings like outside the treatment center, and then while I'm in treatment, you know, I told my counselor, like, man, I said, the feds are after me, the DEA's after me, you know, and he called the DEA, right? And he was like, hey, are you guys looking for this guy? And they're like, no, we don't even know who he is. You know, and then he's like, man, you have a daughter, let's see what we can find out about that. And he started getting me visits with my daughter, you know. It was like shocking. I thought I would never see her again because that's what CPS had told me, like, you'll never see your daughter again.
Yeah.
And so that was the start of like my recovery journey. You know, I went to treatment, I got out, I kept volunteering at the treatment center. You know, I went back home because my mom's husband didn't want me there anymore. So I went back to living with my dad, and you know, I hung out at the casino every day with my dad at the bar, you know, and then finally one day he's like, you want a beer? And I drank that beer, and it was over. Like my whole recovery was thrown away. So
how much clean time did you have at that point?
Probably like 5-6 months. You know, I started in the summer, and I relapsed on New Year's, 1995 going into 1996.
Okay.
And then I went pretty hard after that. I gave up my daughter for adoption. You know, the family that she was with had told me, like, we'll have an open adoption. You'll always be a part of your daughter's life.
Right.
You know, she'll know who you are. And I was like, cool. So I wasn't in the right mind when I did it, you know, but I knew that I was trying to give her a better chance at life.
Right.
You know, so 97 I went to prison, you know, for my first time in prison. I'd done a lot of time as a juvenile, but I never in prison.
Right.
You know, so I went to prison, you know, I got out of prison, and the cycle just continued, you know. In 2003, I came up to Washington to visit, and I loved the beauty out here. This, you know, just like this, the peacefulness. You know, so I went back to Vegas, and then the following year, I came back up, and I left everything. I left the person that I was with. I left behind all my belongings.
Right.
I jumped on the bus with my dad and came up to Washington, you know, and I was like, my whole goal when I got here was, I'm gonna change. I'm not gonna do drugs anymore. I'm not gonna, you know, get in trouble. I'm not gonna do none of that, you know. And so I get a job, and you know, as soon as I get this job, it's like the first thing in my head is like, I need to get high, you know. And then so my second paycheck, I know I went and bought some dope, and then the third paycheck, I was like, okay, now I'm gonna start selling dope,
Right.
you know. And then I moved out. I moved in with some friends
Right.
that I thought were friends, and then started the cycle all over again. Within a couple of months, I was on my way to prison. You know, so that was 2005. I went to prison.
Okay.
I did 18 months on a 20-month sentence, and then I got out for 17 days. Went right back for 3 years. Got out, and then did like 9 violations in between 2 treatment centers. You know, went back for 4 more years. You know, and when I got out, I was like, this is the last time. Things are gonna change. You know, and boredom set in. You know, and when I get bored, I want to go hang out, and I want to drink, and I want to do drugs. So I did that again. You know, 2015 was when it was like the turning point. You know, it was a conversation with my brother-in-law when he asked me, he's like, "What are you gonna do, or how are you gonna feel if you die, if your dad dies while you're in prison?" And he said, "You better feel like a fucking piece of shit." and that just clicked. And I was like, you know what, bro, like, you're right. And you know, I had just tried to commit suicide over a relationship that ended, and I reached out for help, you know, and I got very vocal on social media about what I was going through.
Right.
You know, and a person that I had met that was in recovery out here, you know, made a suggestion to me. She said, maybe you should go to a meeting. Like, why don't you get back involved in recovery? She's like, you've had a taste of it before, you know what it's like.
Right.
And I kind of like begged and pleaded, like, go to this meeting with me, go to this meeting with me. And she's like, dude, I'm out of town. Like, but when I come back, I'll go to a meeting with you. But there's a meeting right now where you're at in the hospital, because I was there for my niece's birth. She's like, go to that meeting, bro. Get comfortable. Like, go get some of that. And I went to this meeting, and I felt really out of place. I felt like I didn't belong there. You know, I felt judged. I just felt awkward. And what it was just me telling myself was that, man, like, you gotta change, you know. That wasn't my clean day, you know. I went to a meeting the next day, and I went to a meeting a couple of days after that. Then I got into a fight, went home and drank, you know, and my clean day started on March 26, 2015.
March 26th. And that March 26, 2015, that was after those couple meetings? Okay. And then was that, I mean, like the first year or two, I mean, you know, was there ever a time where you were like thinking about using again, or?
Not really, no. When I came into recovery, you know, one of the things I heard in meetings all the time was like, this is something you're gonna have to do for the rest of your life. You know, this is a lifelong program. And I was scared to use again, honestly, man. I was really scared, because I know that if I used again, there was like 3 things that can happen. Either I was going to end up in jail, I was going to end up in a mental hospital, or I was going to die.
Right.
You know, and like we have a saying, like, for us to use to die in more ways than one. And that doesn't literally mean, I mean, it doesn't mean you physically die. You know, I believe in a spiritual death. You know, like I've been there. I've been like dead inside and feeling like I didn't have a soul or a purpose. You know, so to me, like, if I knew I was gonna just never come back.
Right. And then, I mean, as far as like in the last, you know, 3 or 4 or 5, 6 years, what has been, I mean, what's probably like the best part? And, you know, I mean, I know you're getting married soon, like the rewards, like the friendships, you know, what's probably been the best part for you?
The best part is not only, you know, getting into a healthy relationship, but like being able to be present when my dad passed.
Right.
You know, that in itself, like a lot of people fear death or blame death on why they get loaded. For me, it was like, if I get loaded, I'm gonna be a disappointment even if he's gone. So like, to me, to experience death and to be able to make it through it was probably one of the greatest gifts. You know, another good thing that's happening is like me and my daughter, we kind of talk now. You know, and it's slowly trying to rebuild a relationship that I ruined. You know, because I got out of prison one time and we started talking, and then I went back to prison and she was disappointed. You know,
Right.
and now we're like, we talk on Instagram, you know, and we've talked on Messenger, you know, but before it was like she didn't want any contact with me, but I couldn't blame her, you know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
there's a lot of good stuff that happens in recovery, man. Like I got like really good job. I get to help people,
Yeah.
you know, my family's back in my life, you know,
Right.
I've rebuilt relationships with people that at one point in my life that I didn't like, you
Yeah.
know, and so there's a lot of good things that happen in recovery.
Right. And then I was thinking, you know, someone maybe who'll see this, like they're, you know, going through some similar things maybe that you went through, or maybe they've, you know, they're struggling with addiction and it's like, you know, they just got out of prison or they just overdosed and they're thinking, okay, you know, I'm ready to do it. You know, is NA something that you think they should join, or, you know, what's something, you know, maybe some advice?
Well, you know, honestly, you know, there's multiple paths to recovery. That's one thing I've learned, you know, since I've been clean, is that it doesn't just take one certain 12-step program. You know, it's a person's choice. You know, there's a lot of options out there. There's recovery coaches. You know, there's some people need mental health. You know, a mental health professional to talk to. Some people need to be on medications. You know, and you know, if people are really struggling, though, you know, one of the things that I've learned is if you really honestly want to change, you're going to change.
Right.
You know, and there's multiple ways to find out. Like my platform is social media.
Yeah.
You know, I use social media for everything. You know, to talk to people, to meet people, to talk about my life, to my journey.
Right.
You know, and that's how I connect with people. You know, I try to keep everything that I post about or anything. It's always got to be positive. You know, I don't allow negativity in my life.
Right. And then last question, like, as far as like philosophy, this sounds like, you know, positive messages, things. I mean, is there like a specific, I mean, I know you're like always posting good stuff, but is there like something or maybe two things that like, you know, something you saw and you were like, you know, this is something I try and live by, maybe that you think is important?
I seen a really good one the other day, and he said everything in life is with two hands. One hand is to level up, and the other one's to reach down and pull a person up with you. You know, and that's what I believe in. You know, one addict helping another. You know, that's how I survive, and that's how I try to show others how to live. Is like, we can't do this alone.
Right.
You know, it's always got to be. You know, if I thought I could do this alone, I probably wouldn't have what I have going on in life today.
Right.
You know, I know that I have to stay connected to a certain group of people. I have to continue to have positivity in my life. You know, and if you want something different, I say this all the time. If you want something different, you got to do something different. If you're going to change something, change everything.
Right.
Yeah.
For sure. Well, you heard it here first. My brother Victor, if you want to change, you've got to make the decision for yourself.
Make recovery the epidemic.
Peace.
Woo! 20 minutes. Hey, thanks, brother. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. You know what this video is, it is my first video that I'm having on my channel, but there is going to be one hopefully every week. So if you haven't already, please like the video, subscribe to my channel. Before I go, I just wanted to point out a couple things. I'm hoping to do this on each video. So, you know, my favorite quote from this, you know, talk I had with Victor, he had mentioned, you know, in recovery, you know, they say you have one hand down, pulling someone up, while you also got one hand up being pulled up by somebody else. You know, I think, you know, having a support group, people around you, maybe even if it's just one family member, you know, that you can go to that pulls you up, and maybe you have that one friend that you just met or is struggling, you know, and you're pulling them up. You know, it doesn't have to be everybody, doesn't have to be just one person. It can be, you know, what's right for you. And then the biggest thing I took away actually from this video was when Victor talked about the conversation he had with his brother, and how his brother kind of told him, you know, hey man, you're probably gonna feel like a piece of shit, you know, if you're not around, if your dad passes away, you know, and that really kind of set him into a different, you know, state of mind. And I think that why that's so important is it showed me, you know, how he values family, and how he valued, you know, time with his dad, you know. And I think that a lot of times, you know, that scenario, you know, family or having that value is what ends up kind of boosting someone, whether they even realize it or not. You know, I'm hoping to highlight some of these, you know, whys or these reasons to push forward in the stories to come. But you'll be able to kind of see what kind of triggers that for certain people. And I think in this case, you know, that conversation and thinking of, you know, who he wanted to be for his dad, and probably for, you know, other members of his family, and, you know, his daughter and things like that, played a huge role in his, you know, getting clean and his sobriety. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys next week. Thanks.